So check it out. You know, I think that we live in a world where you'll have some people that chase rates of return and are willing to take all kinds of risks to do it. And sometimes very, very sparingly they get rewarded, but it's always a short window, right? And then you have the folks that are out there that understand the true value of proper planning and as a result of that, when to take strategic risks based on experience and being able to forecast what's going to happen next. Today I'm with my partner, David Hart.
Hey,
What's
Rob.
up, Dave?
What's up, buddy? I'm good. How are you?
And today we're going to talk about how do I participate in the markets without risk. Now, no matter what you do, there's risk.
There's going to be risk no matter what.
You know what I mean? Like there's nothing you can do to avoid about it. But I guess the first question is, what is, and I always like to ask this question to people, what is your investment philosophy? Like where I think that's a good starting point no matter who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to help somebody when it comes to money and really create a true plan, it's important that we know who they are, not just what income they make or, you know, what their bonus is going to be or, you know, what their 401k is worth.
Right.
Right. So we need to know who they are.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
I feel like 9 out of 10 people don't even know what an investment philosophy looks like. You know, because I don't think that's not something that you sit down at the dinner table and talk to your wife about, right? Yeah. You know, it's something
well,
that,
you don't, especially when the markets are going up, you don't.
Oh, right, exactly. You know,
I
because it's so easy to just take it and just put it in the junk drawer and set it and forget it, and you don't think about it. You know, but define. You know, it's not just your investment philosophy holistically, but then it's your investment philosophy for certain things too. Rob,
and do you know what your investment philosophy even is?
Right.
Right. Like if somebody gets a $50,000 bonus that they didn't factor in, are they finding a place to spend that? I'm going to give you an example.
Right.
I was at the beach club yesterday. I saw two different people. One person is selling his business, tens of millions of dollars. By all accounts, and I love this dude, client of mine, very, very successful in business, has two businesses. The one he's selling is the one that, you know, his dad had built over 60, 70 years. He ran with it for the last 15 years, and now he's looking to sell it. And they're in like the 9th inning of back and forths, and, you know, he's really gone through a full education on selling a big business.
Got it.
Right? Like so much so he could open up a consulting company.
And do it.
Because if he went back in time, he would say, here, I would have did this, this, and this differently.
Sure.
But there's value in that. Anyway, he's selling it, and we were just having a regular conversation. And this is what happens, by the way, folks, for all you entrepreneurs that are out there. You'll meet people. Relationship capital is important. And just when somebody says, especially if you're an advisor right now, I'm going to talk to you, fiduciary, or I'm going to talk to you, insurance agent, and then I'm going to talk to the non-folks that are out there. Yep. When someone says they're going to sell their business, don't tell them that you have a plan for them, right? Like don't have like all kinds of like you just solved the world's problems because you didn't. I promise you didn't. But this person's coming into some massive liquidity, massive. You know, as far as I'm concerned, he has some really good money coming in. And the question he said to me was, he goes, "Look, my building where his other business is has a mortgage balance of $5 million," and he goes, should I pay that off and now the rent that I was paying of 30 grand a month, keep it, you know, for other things? Yeah. Or should I put the money in a managed account, get 3 or 4%, right? This is what he was saying. Get 3 or 4%, because he understood that he doesn't want to take risk with it, and have a portion of that 3 or 4% paid down. If the rent is $30,000, now it's going to be $12,000. Right. So if you followed that, I'll say it again. Basically, he wants to know if he should pay off the building or if he should put the money somewhere else, earn a rate of return, and then use that to pay off the building while at the same time having that other money be leveraged for other business opportunities. So my, not advice, but my conversation with him was, well, if that was me, what I would do is I would have it in a managed money account. I would have a line of credit against that amount for other investment opportunities. And I don't mean crypto and I don't mean Bitcoin. But I'm talking about maybe if there was other businesses that I wanted to buy, while having a portion of that money pay for the rent and then cutting the rent in half and creating another $10,000, $15,000 a month in cash flow. That's just how I look at things, right? So that was the conversation only because he asked. I didn't offer anything. He asked me, what would you do? And I told him what I would do. So that's like an investment philosophy thing. But my point is, and let me go back, this guy, beautiful soul, he gets money. He's always had good money. He's got to be careful not to find a place to put it. Right? So his default is, let me pay off the building so I don't just go put it somewhere else that's stupid. Right.
That's thinking in silos. Well, I think we, left to our own devices, we're going to think about things in silos, Rob, right?
Yes.
Now, I loved what you shared because that created more velocity. But then, the other thing that I heard you say is I would double down on the spots where I have more controllable risk. Controllable risk is something that I can see, smell, and touch, right? It's like what Warren Buffett talks about. Like, if you're going to make an investment, make it into intelligent risk.
Wait, I think Iceberg Slim did that, but go ahead.
Slim definitely did that multiple times in multiple states. And, yeah, pretty, controllable risk means that I can take $1 and I can deploy it into something where I have a predictable or more predictable ROI. I'm going to put it into a piece of real estate because I know that I can control who I rent to, where I buy.
This guy does a lot of real estate already.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, but here's the point, Rob. The answer was directly in front of him and he just didn't know because he didn't have a mapped out or a defined investment philosophy holistically that I'm aware of, And I think what you described to him was if you use velocity on what money can create and you double down into things where you have more semblance of control, business, real estate, things like that, you're going to have a greater outcome.
This guy in particular is very big in the life insurance space as well. So he has a couple of different policies, one premium finance.
Nice.
That's owned by a trust. Yep. And then he has just, some regular other policies that, by the way, he's used to buy his real estate. He also has a 401k. He's also a guy that met another guy and put like $300,000 into Bitcoin last summer. Right. So, so this is where, and that was his, like, let's call it his Vegas money.
Right.
However, whenever you sit down and talk to him, it's the thing that feels the worst. And the reason why it feels bad for him was because it was a trading mindset. Yeah. Right. Chasing a rate of return because he needed the action. Right. So the reason why I'm suggesting this conversation is because for all you folks, it doesn't matter. We're all out there. What is risk? What is risk to you? What is controllable risk that David just mentioned so beautifully? It was unbelievable. And how does that factor into your psyche as you achieve financial success, not to go back to the old version of yourself and make a mistake because this same person who is ultra successful
dynamite
in the late 90s lost a lot of money in real estate.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
So decisions that were made prematurely, he'll be the first to tell you this, on how mistakes that he made, he doesn't want to make those mistakes twice. And we know that you got to be careful what question that you ask yourself. But share some of those thoughts as well, brother.
So when I get together with people for the first time, Rob, what I share with them is, first and foremost, if you've been saving money and you've been building wealth in any way, congratulations. It's a great, great thing. The decisions that you've made yesterday, we cannot control. They're gone, right? However, your positioning now is a reflection of those decisions that you did make. The question is, are those decisions that you made in yesteryear going to serve you best moving forward? So traditional thinking, 401k contribution into mutual funds, individual securities, even ETFs, things like that. Do they have their place? Yes. Are they only spot where you place your dollars? They can't be, because the ROI that you need to generate even just to keep up with inflation today, right now, is over 8%, right? So it's about diversification of risk. I can't control what happens with Johnson & Johnson. Right? Yeah. I can't control what happens with an ETF. I can control certain things, like if I own a business, where I deploy my resources. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
and when you own a business, you could also control mentally how you show up every day.
Correct. That's exactly right.
Right? To keep your employees. Yep. Right? To make sure they're happy. Right?
Yep.
To keep building your business out and replace yourself, and that's how you protect yourself from inflation.
Yep.
And this person I'm talking about, who owned multiple businesses and they complemented each other, his other business is still in full force.
Right.
So he's just taking one off the table, which, by the way, reminds me, if you have money in the markets, or if you did some Bitcoin and some crypto trading and all that other stuff, did you have the ability to take anything off the table, at least your principal off the table? Well, in business, this person I'm talking about did that. He's doing that right now. But at the same time, the business that he's still in is very, very lucrative because of the economic conditions that we're in and the business that he happens to be in. So when you look at all these kryptonites that are out there, and by the way, David just mentioned the 401k as part of the overall planning, part of the financial mosaic. Don't let somebody call you up and tell you take your money out of a 401k, take a 10% penalty and a 20% tax to go buy something, unless you genuinely have a true game plan. Just to do it because somebody said so, we're not for that, right? That's probably not a smart thing, even if the market's down right now. What is smart is to reevaluate your 401k, make sure there's no fees, and make sure you have an understanding of the menu of choices. Same thing with your IRA. But at the end of the day, you don't want to find yourself in a position just to kind of make a move out of fear because someone told you that this coin over here is better, right? So just be careful of that. But I love what you said before about, not only controllable risk, dynamite, but also, 401k is part of it, right?
Yep.
But how do you kind of show up to work every day and take that energy and double down into work? Even with right now you have a team that's building every day. And you're building different components of that team to keep everything in motion for what you do.
Right.
And I think that's a level of controllable risk as well.
Absolutely.
Because you could start predicting outcomes by replacing yourself.
Correct.
Right? So I think at the end of the day, the question is, hey, can I invest money without taking risk? The answer is no. It's not true. There's always risk. But I think David just hit the nail on the head when he talked about increasing the probabilities in your favor through asking proper questions, through understanding the right hand speaking to the left hand, understanding don't do anything out of fear or greed, and tie it into what your investment philosophy is. Understand if that philosophy was handed down from mom and dad, or if it's part of your environment, or if your spouse is not in line with you or is in line with you about money, time, and magic. What do you think, brother? I
think, Rob, everything that you just shared is completely relevant for the here and right now. And the other piece,
I'm just on a different level.
This dude's on a different level.
I'm just on a different level. I'm just not on the same level as everybody. Just don't hate. Participate.
You're actually watching evolution as
I'm just on a different level. Brad Lee, you know what time it is.
Yes.
Call me.
What's your investment philosophy internally in your business?
Brad Lee, you got the call center for final expense. I'm trying to take you to a whole nother level. You got to call me.
Let's go. What's your investment philosophy of the organic growth of your business?
Please tell me more.
So, because everything's an investment, right? If you look at your business and you look at your business as an investment, not just your baby that's generating cash flow, I want to also
fire right now. Check them out. Go ahead.
No doubt. I want to look at the controllable areas that I can produce growth.
Yeah.
But I also have to bear in mind growing too fast and growing too robust. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is
that's a level of risk, right?
Absolutely.
We're talking about risk, right?
Because we're not just talking about risk for today. We're talking about risk for tomorrow as well, right? Like if I have estate tax exposures or if I don't have somebody who can take over my business in the future, right? Maybe the book value on my business isn't what I think it is because I'm the face of the franchise. So all of these things have to be defined when it comes to investment philosophy.
And by the way, for all the young folks that are listening right now, don't get lost on what David just said, because that's important. If you have to rewind it, listen to it, because as you become, because if you're in YouTube University checking us out, as you become more successful and listen to other smart people, these are things that you have to consider. And Dave, here's another risk that I'd love for you to share with the folks. What's the risk in trying to make people happy and not being honest with them?
Oh, God. When you take on the risk of trying to make other people happy and not be honest with them, you're literally only kidding yourself. You're only stunting your growth.
What's the cost of that?
What's the definition of insanity?
Is that
doing the same thing over and over?
Is that more risky than putting money into Bitcoin?
Say hello to mediocrity right there. Yeah, right? yeah, it is.
So if you can't,
I would agree with that.
If you're a people pleaser, because we're talking about risk right now, and this is a risk to relationship capital. And by the way, Bradley said it best, you make money through relationship capital.
Yep.
If you're surrounded by the same 5 people, the same 5 dudes, as he says, you're only going to make that money or be in that circle. You got to go find some new dudes, right? And keep finding new dudes and keep finding new dudes. Relationship capital, if you can't be honest and try not to just make everybody happy, but serve, add value, but be radically honest with love, not insulting anybody. If you can't do that, there's a level of risk, David.
Yep.
Do you want to share anything about that?
I think listen, I'll be the first to admit I've been somebody who's suffered from terminal knowingness, right? Oh, I know what I'm doing, and by the way, that's going to find...
Go slow down.
Yeah.
What is terminal knowingness?
Meaning I think I have it all figured out, and I'll just yes you to death.
But you really know you don't, though, right?
Of course you do.
But you in your mind, when you say yeah, this is important. Like, this is really about risk.
You say yeah because you don't want people to be ticked off of you. That's why, because you're afraid of letting them down. But what you're actually doing is letting them down.
But listen, let me ask you this. When you say yeah, do you actually think you know it? Or is it too, here, stay with me. Is it something that becomes a little bit too complicated and you don't want to ruffle any feathers? I think those are two different things.
I think there's 3 answers to that.
Tell me that, please.
Number 1, you don't want to rustle anybody's feathers. Number 2 is you're saying it because you think that you have it figured out, but you're not actually listening.
Do you actually have it figured out in your mind, or is it because you're not listening?
No, you don't.
Okay, what's number 3?
Number 3 is you're afraid of letting them down.
Okay.
And you're uncomfortable with direct conversation.
So David Meltzer,
yeah.
let me tell you what David Meltzer says. Yeah. When you're busy, right, and you just can't even think straight because you're so busy.
Yes.
He says it's because you're living in abundance, and be grateful for that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're super busy,
yep.
that still doesn't mean that you can't listen and say, you know what, okay, let me be coached on this. First of all, I am abundant. That's beautiful. You have something like 200 appointments a month now on your own with your team, which is incredible. So your abundance has never been in a place that it's ever been before.
Correct.
Right? And as a result of it, there's a risk if you don't learn how to replace yourself.
Absolutely.
That what you're building can kind of slip away a little bit because of the leakage. Is that a fair statement?
That's absolutely fair. Yeah, absolutely fair.
And we're talking about risk, Eddie, so stay with us here. So the risk part of this, because it's a business risk, right?
Yep.
You have the chance to dictate what your own money supply could be going forward, right?
Yes.
Have you ever had that before?
No.
Isn't that a powerful thing?
It's an incredibly powerful thing.
So how do you overcome the small little, because we all have them. I can identify it with people because I've had it.
No.
So it's easy for me to see it in others. David Hammer, he always says that I'm projecting when I say things to him. Because, right? Yeah. That's his smart reaction, even when I'm trying to coach him. But the point is, he's right. We all see in others some of the things that we have challenges in. Sometimes I'll say that Eddie's hiding, but that's because Sean would say that to me, right? So I could identify when people hide. You could see, ready? If you're in a joint text message and people don't respond, they're hiding, just so you know. If you're ever lucky enough to be in a joint text message, don't not respond. Always respond. People love when you respond, right? Now, be careful what the response is. Once again, we're talking about risk.
Right.
I don't want to lose sight here. Eddie, stop rolling your eyes. We're talking about risk. But at the end of the day, it comes down to what does it look like? No, I was talking to you, Ed, not Dave. What does it look like in your business, right? So Dave Harder, you're crushing it. You're crushing it in this business right now.
Yeah.
When we look back on this 6 months from now, what do you want to see 6 months from now when you look back based on where you're at today? That's my question. Now, you know what's about to happen.
I do know
all the things that are going on right now.
I want to have 3 or 4 more me's, honestly. You know, I want to be less involved with the day in and day out minutia of those 200 appointments. Right now, I have not replaced myself.
On some level, but not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And now I think that it's out there.
Yes.
You know, and I think that it's going to take execution and listening and no more yeah.
And you don't know the person yet that's going to help. I do not. They're not here yet, which is good.
I'm
letting you know that.
Yep.
But the point is, 6 months from now, when you have 3 or 4 U's, even if it's one,
yep,
right? That looks like to me somebody, because folks out there right now are worried about gas. Yeah. Folks out there are worried about food prices. Folks out there are worried about the market. These are all fear-based things that's controlling their thinking. I don't think you're concerned about that.
I have the least amount of concern about that. I mean, I have concern for people.
No. I'm talking about you now as an individual.
Dave Harder, yeah. I don't have that concern.
Yeah, and for the folks that want to learn from you, why don't you have that concern?
Well, number one, because I created proximity for myself to somebody who had been there, done that. Never had that before, right? That was one of the biggest things for me personally. I think also number 2 is that I show up to my day different than I think a lot of people do. You know.
Well, first of all, you're an expert at showing up.
That's the first
step.
Really, yeah.
But keep going because I don't want to. You're flowing right now.
Yeah.
When you show up, and then when you get better, it's when you show up with the distinctions. Go ahead.
I identified 4 years ago, Rob, when you and I first met, that I didn't have it figured out at that point.
But you still don't.
I know. I still don't.
Just so we're clear. I don't want there to be confusion, folks. Get my eyes on this one. Please.
There's a long way to go.
Yeah, go ahead. But I'm listening.
But I recognize that what we're doing, I didn't see this, but I think I was the one that coined the phrase, we're going to need a bigger boat.
You did.
I did. Well, aside from
No,
the
you
guy
did.
from Jaws.
No, you did.
I definitely coined that. And because I saw what this ultimately could become. I had no idea what this was going to be, but I saw something different. And more so than that, I saw that I didn't like where I was.
What didn't you like about it, though? And we're not judging. What didn't you like about it? Remember, everywhere you were was your own decisions.
Yes,
to be clear.
absolutely.
But what didn't you like about it?
It was too hard to create conditioned conversations, Rob.
What is that? Dude, that's like Einstein shit.
Tell me what you said. What I mean is that, our business is hard enough, right?
Is this a good video, Ham? Yeah, go ahead.
Developing relationships is hard, right? And it takes a formula, right? It takes massive rapport, et cetera. But it's really, really challenging when you're constantly fishing to create the need, or not even the want, I would say the want for somebody to have a conversation with you subtly, intelligently, about some of the things that we do. That's hard.
Okay, so what you're saying, and I'll translate, right? In the insurance business or any other business, the sales training was so canned. And, right? Don't get embarrassed for these people. That's all they knew.
I'm not.
They just became good at it.
Mm-hmm.
It was so canned and it felt so disingenuous, which is why 95% fail. And that's what they hang their hat on, that 95% of the agents fail as their excuse on why they have to keep bringing in new agents. That's crazy. But they fail because it's not a proper training model.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And I think that's what you're saying right now. This is part of risk. Let's not forget, we're still talking about risk.
Is all part of risk, folks. I mean, because, okay.
Go ahead.
You just said.
Yeah.
Why would I go into a business field? Why would I go to a business field that has a 90% failure rate and think that I'm going to have success? What makes me special? You know what I mean? And it sure as hell isn't going to be the training, right? It's going to be the desire, right? Number one. But number two, it's going to be who you're surrounded by. You're not going to invent financial planning because there's other people that have been there, done that, and are operating at a higher level than you are. So what's the risk? The risk is going in there saying, I have it figured out, or I'm going to invent something new. Guess what? You're not. Surround yourself with people that are doing things at a higher level. Make yourself coachable. Listen instead of speaking. And then you can, eventually start to organically grow to the point where you're not worried about inflation, quite frankly.
So, folks, you just saw an exercise where David put something into his nervous system by saying it out loud that he's never done before. Go ahead and click the link below. If you want to learn how to mitigate risk, if you want to learn how to expand your business, if you want to learn how to create leverage, liquidity, and control, and get multiple rates of return on each and every dollar with no obligation, go ahead and click that link below. And by the way, if there's any other videos you want us to do, ask us. If you have any comments, please put them in there. And if you stuck with us for this 20-minute plus video, thank you so much. We will chop it down in our podcast Apple Tunes version. And thank you for checking us out and be a part of the Epic family.